Journey to the Western Vernacular. Chapter 8. Tang Sanzang is in trouble in the Yellow Wind Cave. From then on, Tang Seng had another apprentice. The three masters and apprentices were not afraid of hardships, and hurried westward day and night. One day, when we came to the foot of a very steep mountain, a whirlwind suddenly blew. Wukong got out of the limelight, grabbed the tail of the wind and smelled it. There was a fishy smell, and said, "The smell of the wind means that there is either a tiger or a monster nearby." Before he finished speaking, a colorful tiger jumped out from the bottom of the hillside, scaring Tang Seng so much that he rolled off his white horse. When Bajie saw him, he threw down his luggage, picked up a rake, and beat him on the head. Suddenly the tiger stood up, stretched out its claws to scratch its chest, peeled off the tiger's skin, and shouted loudly, "I am the vanguard of King Huangfeng. Where are you monks from?" As soon as Bajie explained his origin, the goblin turned around and took out two red copper knives from the rocks and slashed at Bajie. The two started fighting in front of the slope. When Wukong saw it, he came forward with a golden cudgel and beat him. Seeing that he was no match, the goblin rolled on the spot, turned into a tiger again, and ran away. Wukong and Bajie were not willing to give up, so they quickly chased after them. Seeing that he couldn't escape, the goblin resorted to the trick of a golden cicada to escape from its shell. He peeled off the tiger skin with his claws, covered it on a crouching tiger stone, and turned into a strong wind and escaped. When he arrived at the intersection, he saw Tang Seng sitting alone at the intersection, so he grabbed Tang Seng and ran away in the strong wind. The goblin caught Tang Seng in the cave and proudly told the cave owner that he had captured Tang Seng. When the old monster heard this, he was shocked. It turned out that he knew how powerful Sun Wukong was and was very scared, so he asked the little demons to drag Tang Seng into the back garden and tie him to the wind-fixing pillar. He said that he would not eat it for now. After 3 or 5 days, if Tang Seng's apprentices did not come to cause trouble, if so, it's not too late to eat by then. Besides, Wukong and Bajie saw the tiger lying on a rock. They hit it with a rake, and the tiger's skin was broken. The stone was cracked. Wukong shouted, "No, I've fallen into a trap." The two hurried back. They went to look for the master at the intersection, but there was no sign of the master anywhere. Bajie burst into tears in a hurry. Wukong said, "Don't cry yet. We should find the master first." The two brothers chased into the mountains and crossed the mountains. Suddenly they saw a mountain gate under a rock with 6 characters written on it, Huangfengling, Huangfeng Cave. Wukong asked Bajie to look at the horse and luggage, and went to the entrance of the cave to call for formation. The little demons hurriedly ran in to report to the old demon. The vanguard of the old monster volunteered, gathered 50 strong men, beat the war drums and waved the war flags, carried 2 red copper knives, jumped out of the cave door, and started fighting with Wukong. After a few rounds, the monster's back and legs ached. It turned around and wanted to run away. Wukong quickly blocked the way. Seeing that it was impossible to return to the cave, the pioneer had no choice but to turn around and run up the hillside. Bajie happened to be letting his horse go on the hillside. When he saw the goblin being chased by Wukong, he let go of the horse, raised the rake and hit it with all his strength. He beat the goblin's head to pieces and revealed his true form. It was a tiger. Wukong was very happy to see it. He held the golden hoop in one hand and dragged the dead tiger with the other to the entrance of the cave to lure the old demon out. When the old demon heard that Wukong had dragged the body of the pioneer officer to scold the formation, he was very angry. He immediately dressed up, took a 3-pronged steel fork, and led all the little demons out of the cave to fight. When Wukong saw the old demon, he rushed towards him. The two of them were at the entrance of the Yellow Wind Cave. "You struck with a fork and I struck with a stick." They were inseparable. Wukong was eager to win, so he pulled out a handful of vellus hairs from his body and blew a breath of fairy air. The vellus hairs immediately turned into more than 100 Wukongs, each holding a golden hoop, surrounding the old demon. The old demon had never seen such a scene before, and he was very frightened. He blew on the ground, and suddenly a strong wind blew from the sky, blowing the more than 100 Wukong around like windmills in the air. Wukong hurriedly took back his hair and held up the golden cudgel to fight the old monster. The old demon knew that it would be difficult to defeat Wukong, so he blew a breath on Wukong's face. Wukong suddenly felt as if his eyes were being stabbed by countless needle points. The pain was so painful that he couldn't open his eyes, and he was defeated immediately. The old demon took the opportunity to withdraw his troops and went back. By this time, the sky had cleared up, and Wukong told Bajie that his eyes were sore and he couldn't stop crying. The two brothers realized that it was too late, so they decided to find a place to rest and settle the score with the old demon tomorrow. So they led the horses out of the call, and saw a yard at the foot of the south hillside. They went in and knocked on the door, asking for a place to stay. Unexpectedly, an old man rushed out with several young farmers with sticks in their hands. Wukong thought it was a misunderstanding and hurriedly explained his purpose. After hearing this, the old man quickly apologized and asked people to make the bed and prepare meals. Wukong's eyes were filled with tears. The old man took out a small jar made of agate stone and said that an immortal had given him a medicine called Sinhuajuzi ointment, which was specially designed to treat all kinds of wind. The old man clicked some on Wukong's eyes to keep him from opening them. Wukong simply lay down and went to sleep. He didn't wake up until the next morning. He blinked hard, and the pain was gone. What's even more strange is that the two brothers were lying on the grass. Looking around, I saw a note on the tree. When I took it off and looked at it, I realized that the old man in the yard last night was transformed by Dharma Protector Jialan. After discussion, the two decided that Bajie would still watch the horse while Wukong went to catch the monster. Wukong came to the Yellow Wind Cave, turned into a flower-legged mosquito, and flew in through the crack in the door. He saw the old demon and the little demons packing weapons in the hall, preparing to fight again. Wukong flew to the backyard and saw his master tied to the wind-fixing pillar. He flew to Tang Monk's head and comforted him softly, telling him not to worry. Wukong flew back to the hall again, and happened to meet a little demon who came to report, "Your Majesty, there is only a monk with a long mouth and big ears sitting in the woods. The hairy-faced monk is missing. Maybe he has moved his troops." The old demon said, "What are you afraid of?" "I am not afraid of anyone except Lingji Bodhisattva." Wukong felt happy after hearing this. He flew out of the Yellow Wind Cave, showed his true form, and came to the forest, telling Bajie what he had just heard. But where to find Lingji Bodhisattva? The two were discussing when they suddenly saw an old man walking out of the road. Wukong quickly saluted and asked, "Excuse me, old man, do you know the residence of Lingji Bodhisattva?" The old father-in-law said, "Lingji Bodhisattva lives in the Xiaoxumi mountain in the south." He pointed to the south with his hand. Wukong followed the finger and looked south. The old father-in-law had already turned into a breeze and disappeared, leaving a note. It turned out that it was Tai Bai Jinxing who secretly helped. Wukong asked Bajie to wait for him deep in the woods while he went to find Lingji Bodhisattva. Wukong somersaulted straight to the south, and soon he saw a high mountain surrounded by colorful clouds. There was a quiet Zen temple in the valley. From time to time, solemn bells could be heard, and the air was filled with fragrance. He held down the clouds and walked to the door. Seeing a Taoist priest, he hurriedly came forward to salute and found out that this was the place where Lingji Bodhisattva lectured. After hearing the announcement, Lingji Bodhisattva immediately came out to greet Wukong. Wukong explained his purpose. The Bodhisattva said, "I followed the decree of Tathagata Buddha to suppress the yellow wind monster here. It turns out that I caught him, but did not kill him, and put him in the mountain. He is not allowed to harm living beings anymore. I didn't expect that he would still be vicious and hurt your master. I must help you." Lingji Bodhisattva took out the wind-fixing pill and the flying dragon staff, and rode the clouds with Wukong to Huangfeng Mountain. He asked Wukong to go to the mountain gate to challenge and lure the yellow wind monster out. Wukong descended from Zhangyun and broke the cave door with his golden cudgel. The old demon was very angry and stabbed Wukong in the chest with his fork. Wukong raised his stick to parry. After a short span of time, the old demon opened his mouth and wanted to call out the wind. Lingji Bodhisattva dropped the flying dragon staff in midair and turned into an 8-clawed golden dragon. He stretched out 2 claws and grabbed the old demon. He picked up his head and threw it on the edge of a stone cliff. The monster showed its original shape. It turned out to be a yellow-haired marten. Wukong raised his stick and was about to hit him, but Lingji Bodhisattva stopped him and said, "Wait a minute, he was originally a mouse at the foot of Lingshan Mountain. He ate the clear oil from the glass lamp and came here to become a spirit for fear that Vaira would catch him. Now that he has appeared after finding out the truth, let me take him to see Tathagata and see what I should do to him for framing Tang Monk." Wukong, do you think this is okay? Wukong thanked Lingji Bodhisattva, and Lingji Bodhisattva took the yellow-haired marten to the west. Wukong found Bajie in the forest, and the two of them killed all the monsters in the cave, and rescued Tang Monk. They also found some vegetarian food in the cave, made some rice to serve the master, and then walked outside the cave and burned it on fire. Huangfeng Cave. Continue on the road westward. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.